3 hours after my wife's funeral, my son and I were cleaning out her apartment when a cream-colored sheet of paper fell out. My son's face went pale, his hands trembling as he said, "This paper is worthless," and threw it in the trash. I picked up the paper and went to the bank. The manager told me, "You need to call the police." That's when I discovered the truth about my son, and I was going to make him pay. Hello everyone who made it here. Before I tell you what the bank manager showed me, comment below, where are you watching from? And do you believe family should always be trusted with money? That worthless paper held over $3 million and 7 years of lies. Note this story includes fictionalized elements for educational purposes, but the message is vital. My son threw away the most important piece of paper in my late wife's apartment at 2:30 on a Saturday afternoon, 3 hours after we buried her, and I almost let him get away with it. The funeral had been small. 23 people at East Lawn Memorial Park, including the minister and 2 cemetery workers who'd stood at a respectful distance. Helen had outlived most of her friends, and the ones who remained were too frail to make the trip across Sacramento. My son Justin had stood beside me throughout the ceremony, dry-eyed and restless, checking his phone twice during the eulogy. I'd told myself he was grieving in his own way. Now we were back at the apartment Helen and I had shared for 32 years, the one on 21st and Capitol in Midtown Sacramento. Boxes everywhere. Black trash bags leaning against walls. The systematic dismantling of a life reduced to decisions about what stayed and what got donated to Goodwill. I'm 70 years old, retired high school history teacher, widower as of 6 days ago. Helen was 67 when she died, pancreatic cancer stage 3, diagnosed 14 months before the end. The doctors had recommended aggressive treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, possibly surgery. Helen had said no. At the time, I thought it was because she was tired, ready to let go. I didn't know the truth yet. I didn't know anything. Helen had been an elementary school librarian for 34 years at John Sutter Elementary. She taught children to love books, to ask questions, to think critically about the world around them. I loved her for 49 years, married her for 46 of them. I thought I knew everything about her, the way she hummed while cooking, how she organized bookshelves by color instead of author, the small scar on her left hand from a kitchen accident in 1979. I was wrong about that too. My son Justin is 40 years old, tall like me but carrying weight. I'd never had the kind that comes from expense account dinners and hours spent sitting in cars between sales calls. He lives out in El Dorado Hills with his wife Amanda and their 8-year-old daughter Lily. His job title seemed to change every time I asked: pharmaceutical sales, then medical device consulting, then something vague about healthcare logistics. Helen used to say he was climbing the corporate ladder so fast he didn't have time to read the rungs. He'd visited her 3 times in her last year, 3 times in 12 months. Each visit lasted under an hour. Justin was going through Helen's desk when he found the stack. Old bills, mostly PG&E statements from 2 years ago, credit card offers, a warranty card for a toaster we'd bought in 2019 and thrown out last summer. The desk had 5 drawers, and Helen had apparently never thrown anything away. "This is all junk, Dad," he said, flipping through the papers quickly. Too quickly, I realized later, like he was looking for something specific. "We can toss it." But then something slipped out from between 2 electric bills, a single sheet of paper, cream-colored, heavier stock than the junk mail. It fell toward the floor, and Justin caught it before it landed, his hand shooting out fast. I watched his face change. It only lasted a second, maybe 2, but I saw it. A flicker of something I couldn't identify. His jaw tightened. His hand closed around the paper hard enough that I heard it crumple slightly. His eyes went wide, then narrow, then carefully blank. "What is it?" I asked. "Nothing." He said it too fast, already moving toward the kitchen. "Just an old bank statement, expired." "Let me see." "Dad, it's nothing. The account's probably closed anyway. Mom kept everything, you know how she was." He was at the trash can now, the white plastic bin we kept next to the refrigerator. "We've got actual important stuff to deal with. The lease on this place ends in 60 days. We still haven't sorted her medical bills. And the probate paperwork, Justin." The paper hit the bottom of the bin. I heard it land on top of coffee grounds and a torn envelope from something I'd opened that morning. "Trust me, Dad. It's worthless." 10 minutes later, his phone rang. He stepped into the hallway to take the call, his voice dropping to a murmur I couldn't quite make out. When he came back, he was already reaching for his jacket, the expensive charcoal one Amanda had bought him last Christmas. "Amanda needs me home," he said. "Lily's got a thing at school Monday morning, some project presentation. I need to help her prep." It was Saturday afternoon. The school thing was 2 days away. "You're leaving." "We're not even halfway through the bedroom. I'll come back next weekend. Promise." He was already at the door keys jangling in his hand. "Just don't throw away anything major without checking with me first, okay? Some of Mom's stuff might have value. Antiques, jewelry, whatever. We should go through it together." Then he was gone. I heard his footsteps echo down the exterior stairwell, heard the distinctive hum of his Tesla starting up in the parking lot below. The sound faded down Capitol Avenue, and then there was just silence. I sat in that apartment for a long time after he left. The afternoon light came through the window in slanted gold bars that slowly turned orange, then purple, then deep blue. I didn't turn on any lights. I just sat on the couch Helen and I had bought at a yard sale in 1991, surrounded by boxes and trash bags and the accumulated evidence of a life I'd thought I understood. Something about the way Justin had moved bothered me. The speed of it, the certainty, and that look on his face when the paper had fallen, that split second of raw emotion before he'd locked it down behind the careful blankness he always wore when he was lying. I'd seen that look before. When he was 16 and I'd caught him sneaking back into the house at 3 a.m. When he was 22 and Helen had asked him about the $500 missing from her purse. Nothing he'd said. Worthless. But his hands had been shaking. At 8 o'clock that evening, I finally stood up, turned on the kitchen light, walked over to the trash can. The paper was still there, resting on top of the coffee grounds and junk mail, one corner slightly crumpled, where Justin's hand had squeezed too hard. I pulled it out carefully, smoothed it on the counter under the fluorescent light. It wasn't a bank statement. It was a certificate of deposit from Wells Fargo dated April 12, 2017. Account number printed in small black type across the top. Current value listed in larger numbers at the bottom, $3,245,670. $3.2 million. My hands went numb. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. The numbers didn't change. And underneath the account number stuck to the certificate with a small yellow post-it note in Helen's careful handwriting was a message that made the floor tilt underneath my feet. "Charles, they don't know about this one. Take this to Russell Jennings at Wells Fargo Midtown. Trust no one in the family. I love you. Trust no one in the family. Not be careful. Not ask questions first. Trust no one." Including, I understood with a cold certainty that settled into my bones, our son. I read Helen's note 17 times before I understood what she was really saying. Trust no one in the family. Not be careful. Not ask questions. Trust no one. Including our son. 2 a.m. I sat at the kitchen table with the certificate spread out in front of me, that yellow post-it note glowing under the overhead light, like a tiny flag of warning. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of old pipes settling. Outside Capitol Avenue was empty. Even the bars had closed an hour ago. The certificate said April 12, 2017. 8 years ago, 8 years Helen had kept this secret, and she'd never mentioned it. Not once. Not during dinner conversations about money, not when we'd argued about whether we could afford to replace the water heater, not during those long nights in her final months when pain kept her awake. And we'd talk about everything and nothing just to pass the hours. $3,245,670. I kept reading the number like it might change if I looked away and looked back. But it stayed the same. More money than I'd earned in my entire career teaching American history to teenagers who'd rather be anywhere else. My mind kept circling back to 2017. That was the year Helen started forgetting things. Small things at first, where she'd left her car keys, whether she'd already taken her morning vitamins, the name of the neighbor in 3B who'd lived there for a decade. I'd been worried. Had made her an appointment with Dr. Dixon, our family physician. He'd run tests, asked questions, looked concerned in that professional way doctors have when they're preparing you for bad news. Early signs of cognitive decline, he'd said. Not unusual for her age. We'll monitor it. But now I wondered, had Helen really been forgetting, or had she been pretending? 2017 was also the year Justin moved back to California from Nevada. He'd been living in Las Vegas, working for some medical supply company that went under. Or that's what he'd told us. He'd shown up at our door in June with 2 suitcases and a story about wanting to be closer to family, about Amanda being pregnant with Lily, about wanting his daughter to grow up near her grandparents. "I want to help take care of you guys," he'd said. "You're not getting any younger." I was 63. Helen was 64. We weren't exactly decrepit, but Justin had insisted. Moved into an apartment in El Dorado Hills close enough to visit regularly. At first, he had visited regularly twice a week, sometimes more. He'd take Helen to doctor's appointments, help her with grocery shopping, sit with her while I was still teaching those last few years before retirement. We'd been grateful. What parent wouldn't be your son wanting to take care of you? Now that gratitude tasted like ash in my mouth. Helen had refused cancer treatment. That was 2024, just this past January, when Dr. Dixon had delivered the diagnosis. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer. Operable possibly, but the surgery was risky. Chemotherapy would be brutal. The whole course of treatment would cost somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000, even with Medicare. "I'm not doing it," Helen had said. We were sitting in Dr. Dixon's office, the walls covered with diplomas and those motivational posters about perseverance. "I'm 67 years old, Charles. I've had a good life. I'm not spending our last savings on maybe buying myself 6 more months of misery." I'd argued. God, I'd argued. But Helen was stubborn when she made up her mind, and eventually I'd stopped fighting. I thought she was just tired. Ready to accept the inevitable. But she'd had $3 million hidden away. $3 million that could have paid for treatment 10 times over. And she'd chosen to die instead. Why, the answer was in my hand. That post-it note in Helen's careful script. "Take this to Russell Jennings at Wells Fargo Midtown. Trust no one in the family." She'd been protecting something, or protecting someone, or maybe just protecting the truth, making sure it survived even if she didn't. The certificate felt heavy in my hands, heavier than paper should feel. This wasn't just money. This was evidence of what I didn't know yet. But Helen had hidden it, had left me instructions, had warned me not to trust family, not trust Justin. My son who'd thrown this certificate in the trash without a second thought. Or maybe with every thought. Maybe that's why his hands had been shaking. I looked at the clock. 2:43 in the morning. The bank wouldn't open for almost 7 hours. Monday morning, I'd take this to Wells Fargo Midtown. I'd find Russell Jennings, whoever he was, and I'd start getting answers to questions I hadn't even known I needed to ask. But first I needed to hide it. Justin had found it once in Helen's desk. If he came back when he came back, he'd look for it. I was certain of that now. The way he'd rushed off, the way he'd told me not to throw anything away without checking with him first. He was planning to come back and search more thoroughly. I stood up, certificate in hand, and looked around the apartment. Where do you hide something this important, this dangerous? Then I saw it. Helen's bookshelf, the one organized by color blue spines bleeding into green, bleeding into yellow. She had hundreds of books accumulated over decades of being a librarian. And there on the third shelf, wedged between two thick encyclopedias, was a worn copy of Moby Dick that we'd owned since 1976. I pulled it down. The pages were yellowed, the binding cracked. Helen had read it twice, made notes in the margins in pencil. I opened it to the middle where the pages were thickest and carefully slid the certificate between pages 400 and 401 right in the middle of Ahab's final confrontation with the whale. Ironic, maybe. A story about obsession and revenge, about a man who destroyed himself, chasing something he couldn't let go. I put the book back on the shelf, stepped back. It looked completely ordinary. Just another old novel in a collection of old novels. Justin wouldn't look there. Why would he? Justin had never been much of a reader. I was about to turn off the kitchen light and try to sleep when I heard it. Footsteps on the exterior stairwell, heavy, deliberate, coming up to the second floor. I glanced at the clock. 2:58 in the morning. The footsteps stopped outside my door. Sunday morning light was streaming through my kitchen window when the doorbell rang. Justin stood in the hallway, Amanda beside him, and I knew immediately they'd come for the paper I'd pulled from the trash. I hadn't slept. The doorbell at 3 in the morning had turned out to be my neighbor with car trouble, but after that, I'd spent the rest of the night watching the bookshelf where I'd hidden the certificate. By the time real morning came, I'd drunk 4 cups of coffee and felt like my nerves were made of live wire. Now here was Justin 12 hours earlier than he'd promised. "Hey, Dad." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Thought I'd come back and help you finish up Mom's stuff. Didn't feel right leaving you to do it alone." Amanda stood beside him, only the second time I'd seen her up close since the funeral. 37, 10 years younger than Justin, with carefully maintained appearance that spoke of regular salon visits. Designer jeans, expensive leather jacket, a handbag that probably cost more than my monthly pension. "Charles," she said, touching my arm. "We're so sorry about Helen." I stepped back to let them in, watching Justin's eyes sweep the apartment. The trash can first, then the kitchen counter, then the desk. Did you take the trash out yet?" Justin asked. "I forgot to do it yesterday." There it was. My heart kicked against my ribs. "Yeah. Building maintenance came by around 7 this morning." A lie. The building didn't have Sunday collection. But Justin wouldn't know that. I watched him process this. Watched the brief flash of panic cross his face before he glanced at Amanda. Something passed between them. Some silent communication that made my skin crawl. "Oh, good." Justin closed a desk drawer he'd opened. Less to worry about. Amanda stepped forward, smile brightening. "Charles, Justin mentioned there might be old bank documents we should look at. For probate." "I'll handle probate with Helen's attorney," I said. "You have an attorney?" Justin asked too quickly. Since when? Since 1992, Clarence Pemberton, Old Sacramento. The name made Justin's jaw tighten. What followed were two of the longest hours of my life. Justin and Amanda went through the apartment with thoroughness that would have been touching if I didn't know what they were really doing. They checked closets, emptied drawers, sorted through boxes. Always casual, always under the guise of helping. Amanda took the bedroom. I heard her opening nightstands, the dresser, even trying combinations on the small safe where we kept important documents. Justin focused on the living room and kitchen. He went through the desk 3 more times, each search more frustrated. At one point he stood in front of Helen's bookshelf where I'd hidden the certificate, and my breath stopped completely. "Mom had a lot of books," he said, reaching for a thick blue volume. "She was a librarian for 34 years, I replied. "What did you expect?" He pulled out an encyclopedia about birds, flipped through it, found nothing, shoved it back. Not Moby Dick, thank God. "Where's Lily?" I asked. "With a babysitter," Amanda said, emerging from the bedroom. "We didn't think it was appropriate to bring her. All this sorting through a dead grandmother's things." Dead grandmother. Not her grandmother or Helen. Already forgotten, already reduced to a category. "I'd like to see her sometime," I said. "Sure," Justin said vaguely. "We'll set something up." They left at 2 in the afternoon, empty-handed and visibly tense. I walked them to the door, accepted Amanda's air kiss, watched them descend the stairs. Then I went to the window. From the second floor I had a clear view of the parking lot. Justin and Amanda reached his Tesla but didn't get in. They stood beside it, and even from this distance I could see the argument building. Amanda's hands moved sharply, punctuating words I couldn't hear. She pointed back at the building, face tight with anger. Justin shook his head, hands spread in helplessness. Amanda grabbed his arm, pulled him close, said something that made his whole body go rigid. He pulled away, ran hands through his hair, looked up at the building like he was calculating something. For a second I thought he was looking directly at my window, and I stepped back. Finally, they got in the car. But they sat there for another 5 minutes, Amanda talking, Justin listening with his head bowed. Then the Tesla's motor engaged, and they pulled away. I stayed at the window long after they disappeared down Capitol Avenue. My hands were shaking. They were desperate. That much was clear. Desperate enough to come back less than 24 hours after leaving. Desperate enough to search my home under the pretense of helping. Desperate enough to argue about it in public. They were looking for something specific. The certificate. They knew it existed. They needed it gone. Which meant Helen had been right. Trust no one in the family. I walked to the bookshelf, pulled out Moby Dick. The certificate was still there, pressed between pages 400 and 401, safe and waiting. Tomorrow morning, I'd take it to Wells Fargo Midtown. I'd find Russell Jennings, and I'd start learning the truth my wife had died protecting. But first, I needed to understand why Justin was so desperate, why Amanda had come with him, why they'd searched with such methodical intensity. The answer sat in my hand. $3,245,670. Money Helen had hidden for 8 years. Money she'd never told me about, even when we'd argued about affording her cancer treatment. She'd let herself die rather than touch this money, rather than let Justin know it existed. What had my son done to make his own mother that afraid? Russell Jennings's face went through 3 distinct expressions when I handed him the certificate of deposit recognition concern, and something that looked uncomfortably close to relief. I'd arrived at Wells Fargo Midtown at 9 o'clock sharp Monday morning, waiting in my car across the street until I saw the lights flip on inside. The bank sat on the corner of 21st and J Street, a newer building with too much glass, and not enough character, the kind of place that could have been anywhere in America. I'd walked past it 1,000 times in 32 years and never once gone inside. Helen had handled our banking. Now I understood why. The lobby was empty except for one teller counting cash at her station and a security guard who nodded at me as I entered. I approached the teller, her name tag said Sandra, and asked to speak with Russell Jennings. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but tell him it's about Helen Harrison. He'll want to see me." Something flickered across Sandra's face. She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, then gestured toward a hallway. Second door on the right. Russell Jennings was 52 years old, I'd later learn, with silver haircut, military short, and the kind of posture that suggested he'd spent time in uniform before banking. He stood when I entered his office, hand extended, and I saw him clock the certificate in my other hand before his eyes even met mine. "Mr. Harrison," he said. "I've been expecting someone. I wasn't sure if your wife had told anyone." He closed the door behind me, locked it, pulled the blinds on the interior window that looked out onto the lobby. The whole sequence took maybe 10 seconds, and by the end of it, my heart was hammering. "You know about this?" I said, not a question. "I do." Russell gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Please sit down. This is going to take a while." I sat, handed him the certificate, watched his hands steady as he examined it. Fingers tracing the account number like he'd memorized it years ago. "April 12th, 2017, he said quietly. "Your wife came in on a Wednesday afternoon. She had 2 cashier's checks, total of $2 million. Said she wanted to open a certificate of deposit, highest interest rate available, longest term we offered. She was very specific about the instructions." "What instructions?" Russell looked up at me. "That no one but her could access it. That if anyone tried, anyone including family, we were to deny the request and notify her immediately. She gave me her personal cell phone number. Made me promise I'd call her directly, not the home number. The home number Justin would have answered. The landline Helen had insisted we keep, even though I'd wanted to cancel it years ago. She knew," I said. "She knew someone would try to steal it." Russell pulled up records on his computer fingers, moving across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. "Your wife came back 4 more times between 2017 and 2023. Each time she'd verify the account was still secure, update her contact information, make sure nothing had been compromised. The last time I saw her was August of 23. She looked..." He paused, choosing words carefully. "She looked ill, thinner, but her mind was sharp as ever. August 2023, 5 months before her cancer diagnosis, or 5 months before she told me about it." "Where did she get $2 million? I asked. "Property sales. She liquidated 2 investment properties, a rental duplex she'd inherited from her mother back in 1998, and a small commercial building in Folsom she'd purchased during the .com era. Both sales went through quietly. She handled everything through a real estate attorney in Roseville, kept the transactions completely separate from your joint accounts. Properties I'd forgotten existed. The duplex had been in Helen's mother's name so long it had faded from memory. The Folsom building I'd thought she'd sold years ago. The initial deposit was $2 million, Russell continued. With compound interest over 8 years at our highest CD rate, the current value is $3,245,670 as of this morning. The number hit me again, even though I'd already seen it. $3.2 million. More money than I'd thought Helen and I had accumulated in our entire lives combined. "Mr. Harrison, there's something else you need to know." Russell's voice dropped lower. "In March of 2020, someone tried to access this account. 3 separate attempts over a 2-week period. He clicked through screens, pulling up scanned documents. March 9th, 14th, and 20th. Each time they submitted power of attorney paperwork, claiming your wife was mentally incapacitated and unable to manage her own affairs. The documents were professionally done, notarized, properly formatted, but our document verification specialist flagged them. Why, the signatures were wrong. Not obviously forged, but wrong. The pressure was too consistent, suggesting someone had traced rather than signed naturally. The pen type didn't match what your wife typically used. And when we called the notary whose seal appeared on the documents, he had no record of notarizing anything for Helen Harrison. Russell turned his monitor toward me. 3 identical forms filled the screen, each bearing Helen's name, each claiming she needed someone else to manage her finances, each with a signature that looked like hers, but wasn't. Who submitted them? I asked, though I already knew. My hands were cold. Russell clicked another button. A name appeared at the top of the first form, listed as the designated agent with power of attorney. Justin Harrison. My son's name. His address in El Dorado Hills. His phone number. His signature at the bottom, swearing under penalty of perjury that the information was true and correct. The first attempt was denied immediately, Russell said. Your wife had warned us this might happen. When we rejected it, the same person tried 2 more times with slightly different paperwork, probably hoping a different teller wouldn't notice. But we'd flagged the account. Every attempt was documented, reported to our fraud prevention team. Did you call Helen? Every time. She thanked me, said she was handling it. Asked me not to involve law enforcement yet. Russell looked uncomfortable. In hindsight, I should have pushed harder, but she was adamant. Said she needed to gather more evidence first, that moving too quickly would compromise something larger she was working on. The office felt smaller suddenly, the walls too close. I could hear my own breathing, harsh and uneven. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Why didn't Helen tell me? I don't know why she didn't tell you, Mr. Harrison. But she made me promise not to contact you unless something happened to her. She said if she died and someone came asking about the CD, I should tell them everything. He pulled a sealed envelope from his desk drawer. My name written on the front in Helen's handwriting. She left this for you. Said to give it to you if you ever came here. I stared at the envelope. Couldn't make myself reach for it yet. Mr. Harrison, Russell said quietly, I think we need to call the police. What your son attempted 3 times, that's felony forgery. Elder financial abuse. The fact that your wife hid $2 million and then died without using it for her cancer treatment. He stopped. Started again. I think there's more to this than attempted access to a bank account. I finally looked away from the envelope, looked at the screen showing Justin's signature on those forged documents. My son swearing under oath that his mother couldn't manage her own affairs, trying 3 times to steal from her. Yes, I said. Call the police. Russell's fingers moved across his keyboard, pulling up records that would change everything I thought I knew about the last 5 years of my wife's life. Your son is still in the lobby, Russell said, voice low. Sandra's keeping him occupied with paperwork. We have maybe 10 minutes before he gets suspicious. He turned his monitor toward me, and I saw rows of data I didn't understand at first. Dates, dollar amounts, account numbers swimming across the screen. The 3 power of attorney attempts in March 2020 weren't random, Russell said. They were calculated. Look at the dates, March 9th, 14th, 20th. Each attempt came after the previous one was rejected. Each used slightly different language, different notary stamps. Someone was refining their approach. Professionally done, I said, remembering his earlier words. Exactly. The signatures were forged, but by someone with skill. Our document verification specialist flagged them because the pen pressure was too consistent. Someone had traced, rather than signed naturally. And the notary seals, while authentic-looking, came from notaries who had no record of ever meeting Helen Harrison. Russell clicked through scanned images of the forms. My son's name at the top of each one, swearing my wife was mentally incapacitated. But here's what I want you to understand, Mr. Harrison. Your wife opened this certificate of deposit in April 2017. The first theft attempt was March 2020. That's 7 months shy of 3 years. She knew someone would come for this money. She was waiting for it. The timeline felt important, though I couldn't say why yet. Russell opened another file. After we denied the power of attorney attempts, I personally reviewed all accounts associated with your family name. I found 4 other accounts in your wife's name, joint accounts with your son listed as co-signer. Since when? Since 2016. Your wife added him to the accounts that year. According to the notes, she told our staff it was for convenience in case she needed help managing finances as she got older. 2016. 1 year before she'd opened the secret certificate. 1 year before she'd started forgetting things. These 4 accounts, Russell continued pulling up spreadsheets, show a pattern of systematic withdrawals over 8 years. Small enough amounts that they wouldn't trigger automatic fraud alerts, but consistent. Look. The spreadsheet filled with red highlighted rows. 20,000 here, 35,000 there, 15,000, 22,000. Each withdrawal spaced 2 to 3 months apart, stretching from January 2016 through January 2024. Every single withdrawal was made by your son, Russell said. The ATM cash advances transfers to external accounts, checks made out to cash. Over 8 years, the total comes to $1,850,000. The number hit me like a physical thing. Nearly $2 million. Stolen from his own mother across 8 years, while I'd thought we were scraping by on teacher pensions. The withdrawals stopped in January this year, Russell said quietly. 2 months before your wife died. You know why? I shook my head, though some part of me already knew. Because the accounts were empty. He'd drained them completely. I stared at the screen, at the final balance lines showing 0000. Your wife came here 4 times between 2020 and 2023, Russell said. Each time she requested printed statements of all her accounts. She told me it was for tax purposes. I think now she was building a case, documenting everything. He pulled paper files from a drawer, bank statements going back years, each one marked with Helen's initials in the corner. She knew, I said. She knew he was stealing, and she documented it. More than that. Russell's expression was grim. She planned for it. The certificate of deposit, the separate properties she sold, the warnings she gave me. Your wife spent years preparing for something. For this moment, maybe. For you sitting here learning the truth. My throat felt tight. Why didn't she just turn him in? Why let him steal for 8 years? I don't know, Mr. Harrison, but I think, Russell hesitated. I think she wanted to make sure the evidence was ironclad, that when the truth came out, there'd be no way for him to talk his way out of it, no way for anyone to doubt what he'd done. The phone on Russell's desk rang. He glanced at it, then at me. That'll be Sandra, probably saying your son is getting impatient. He picked up. Jennings. Listened. His face changed. What? When? A pause. Don't let him leave the building. And tell Mr. Harrison's son I'll be with him shortly. He hung up slowly, looking at me with an expression between surprise and something like vindication. Mr. Harrison, you said we should call the police. Yes. We don't need to. Russell stood moving to his office door and opening it slightly. I saw him gesture down the hallway. Detective George Campbell, Sacramento Financial Crimes Division. Someone reported suspicious activity on this account 2 hours ago at 7 this morning before the bank even opened. An official complaint filed with instructions to investigate immediately. A man appeared in the doorway. Late 40s, built solid with the kind of eyes that missed nothing. He showed me a badge. Mr. Harrison, he said. I'm Detective Campbell. I've been waiting for you to show up. My mind reeled. Someone reported this 2 hours ago who? Russell and the detective exchanged a look. Your wife, Campbell said. Shakei Diti? Helen Harrison filed a predated complaint with my division in August 2023. Detailed documentation of financial theft, forged power of attorney attempts, systematic asset drainage. She gave us everything: bank statements, forged documents, timeline of events. But she included specific instructions. What instructions? That we were not to act until after her death. That we were to wait for her husband, you, to discover the certificate of deposit and bring it to Russell Jennings. Only then were we to open a formal investigation. Campbell's voice was measured, professional. Your wife predicted every step of this, Mr. Harrison, including the fact that you're here right now. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Helen had known, had planned, had filed a police report 8 months before she died with instructions that it remain sealed until I found the truth myself. And your son, Campbell continued, is currently in the lobby asking questions about this very account, which means we need to move quickly. Detective George Campbell was 48 years old, built like someone who'd played college football and never quite stopped training, and he looked at me with the kind of steady compassion that made me understand immediately that this was going to get worse before it got better. We'd moved to a conference room at the back of the bank, away from the lobby where Justin was still waiting. Campbell had brought a briefcase, Russell had brought Helen's files, and I sat between them, feeling like the world had tilted sideways and wouldn't right itself again. Mr. Harrison, Campbell began, I've been with Sacramento Financial Crimes Division for 18 years. I've investigated elder abuse cases that would turn your stomach. But your wife's case... He paused, choosing words. Your wife was the most thorough victim I've ever encountered. She documented everything. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick accordion folder. Helen's name written on the tab in black marker. She contacted me August 15th, 2023, 6 months before she died. Walked into my office without an appointment, sat down and said, I'm being robbed by my son, and I'm dying of cancer. I need you to wait until I'm dead to do anything about it. The image of Helen walking into a police station, sick and determined, made my throat close up. She gave me this. Campbell tapped the folder. 8 years of bank statements. Copies of the forged power of attorney documents. A timeline of every theft, every lie, every manipulation. She'd been collecting evidence since 2017. Why didn't she just turn him in then? I asked. Why wait? Why let him keep stealing? Campbell's expression was grim. She told me she needed ironclad proof, that Justin would lie, would claim she'd given him permission, would say she was confused because of dementia. She said people believe sons over mothers, especially when the mother is old and sick, so she spent years building a case that couldn't be denied. He pulled out a document, a formal complaint typed and notarized Helen's signature at the bottom. She filed this with my division last August, but she included specific instructions: do not act until after my death. Do not contact my husband until he discovers the certificate of deposit. Wait for him to bring it to Russell Jennings. Only then open the investigation. She knew I'd find it, I said. She was counting on it. She told me you were the most honest man she'd ever known, that you'd do the right thing even if it destroyed you. Campbell's voice softened. She also said if Justin found out she was aware of the theft, he'd move the money offshore, destroy evidence, maybe even... He stopped. What? She was afraid of him, Mr. Harrison. Not physically, but she believed he was capable of anything if cornered. That's why she pretended to have dementia, to make herself seem harmless, not worth worrying about. I thought of Helen those last few years, playing confused, playing weak, while all along she was gathering evidence like a prosecutor building a case. We've been monitoring your son's accounts since April 1st, Campbell continued, the day after your wife died, and we've already found activity that concerns us. He pulled out a printout, highlighted sections jumping out. April 2nd, one day after Helen's death, Justin transferred $47,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. That's obstruction of justice and money laundering on top of the elder abuse charges. One day. Justin had waited one day after his mother died before moving money out of the country. Mr. Harrison, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Did you know any of this? Were you aware your son was stealing from your wife? The question felt like an accusation, even though Campbell's tone was neutral. No. My voice came out raw. I thought Helen had dementia. I thought we were broke. I thought the cancer treatment was too expensive, that we couldn't afford it. She let me believe that. She protected you, Campbell said. That's what she told me she was doing. She said if you knew, you'd try to fix it. Try to confront Justin. Try to get the money back. Try to forgive him because he's your son. She said you'd sacrifice the evidence for family peace. He was right. She'd been right. If Helen had told me 3 years ago that Justin was stealing, I would have sat him down, talked to him, probably believed whatever excuse he gave me. Your wife also mentioned something else, Campbell said. She said she was refusing cancer treatment, that the money she'd saved, the $2 million in the certificate, could have paid for treatment 10 times over. But she chose to die instead. Why? The word came out broken. Because she said if she drained the CD for treatment, there'd be nothing left to prove what Justin had done. The money wasn't for her anymore. It was evidence. It was justice. Campbell closed the folder. Your wife chose death over letting your son get away with it. The conference room felt airless. I couldn't look at either of them. We need to move quickly, Campbell said. Your son is asking questions at the front desk right now. He knows someone's here, knows something's happening. Within the week, I'll have enough evidence for arrest warrants. But I need you to understand what that means. Arrest warrants, I repeated. For multiple felonies. Elder financial abuse, forgery, money laundering, conspiracy. Your son is looking at serious prison time, Mr. Harrison. 10 years, maybe more. Campbell's eyes held mine. And I need to know right now, are you going to protect your son, or are you going to honor your wife's wishes? I looked down at my hands, at the yellow post-it note I'd been carrying since Saturday night, Helen's handwriting fading at the creases. Trust no one in the family. She'd known I'd have to make this choice. Known it would break me. When do we talk to the attorney? I asked. Campbell nodded slowly, something like respect crossing his face. This afternoon. His name is Clarence Pemberton, Old Sacramento. Your wife met with him 6 times over the last 7 years. He has documents you need to see. Clarence Pemberton's law office was in Old Sacramento 3rd floor of a brick building that had been standing since the gold rush. And when he opened the door to greet me, I saw my wife's eyes looking back, the same sharp intelligence, the same quiet determination. We'd left the bank through a back entrance. Campbell had arranged it after Justin started demanding to see the manager, his voice carrying through the lobby. "Someone's asking about my mother's accounts," he'd told Sandra. "I have a right to know who." By then we were already gone. Now it was Tuesday afternoon, and I stood in an office that smelled like old paper and furniture polish. Law books lined every wall, floor to ceiling. Clarence himself was 73, white-haired and slight, wearing a cardigan that had gone out of style in the 90s. But his handshake was firm, and his eyes, Helen's eyes, missed nothing. "Charles," he said, "I've been expecting you. Helen said you'd come." "You knew," I said. "All this time you knew." "I did." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Sit, please. We have a great deal to discuss." Detective Campbell had come with me, standing now by the window overlooking 2nd Street. Clarence nodded to him like they'd met before. "Detective, Helen spoke highly of you. Said you were one of the few who actually listened to victims." "She made it easy," Campbell replied. "Most thorough documentation I've ever seen." Clarence moved to a wall of filing cabinets and pulled out a storage box. It was the kind lawyers use for case files, heavy cardboard with a lid. Someone had labeled it in black marker, "Harrison Case," to be opened only after my death. Helen's handwriting, precise, unshakable. "Your wife came to me in November 2017, Clarence said, setting the box on his desk. "Walked into this office and said, 'I need to document something quietly, something that's going to take years to prove.' I've known Helen since 1982. We met in a constitutional law class at Sacramento State. She was the smartest person in the room always. So when she asked for help, I didn't question her." He opened the box. Inside were manila folders neatly organized, each one labeled with dates and categories. Bank statements, receipts, correspondence, a small USB drive in a plastic case, and at the bottom, a leather-bound notebook. "She came here 6 times over the last 7 years. Clarence continued. "Each visit she'd add more evidence. Bank statements showing withdrawals she hadn't authorized. Receipts for purchases she'd never made. Text messages she'd somehow managed to retrieve from Justin's phone." "How did she get his text messages?" I asked. Clarence smiled thinly. "Your wife was a librarian. She understood information systems better than most IT professionals. She also understood people. When Justin added her to his phone plan in 2018, supposedly to save money, she gained access to the account management portal. From there, she could see every text, every call log. She documented all of it." He handed me one of the folders. Inside were screenshots printed out and dated, text exchanges between Justin and Amanda, between Justin and someone named Marcus Bradford. The conversations were coded careful, but the meaning was clear enough. Mom's accounts looking thin. Might be time to find the other one. She doesn't remember anything anymore anyway. Won't even notice. I closed the folder before I could read more. "The last time I saw Helen was March 26th of this year," Clarence said quietly. 10 days before she died. She was so thin I barely recognized her. But she walked in here under her own power, sat in that chair you're sitting in now, and dictated a sworn statement. We recorded it, had it notarized, sealed it with instructions that it not be opened until after her death and after you'd discovered the certificate." "A video?" Campbell asked, leaning forward. "Audio and video. 37 minutes of testimony. Helen explaining every theft, every manipulation, every moment she'd pretended to be confused, so Justin wouldn't realize she was building a case." Clarence's voice wavered. She knew she was dying, knew she had maybe weeks left, and she spent those weeks making sure the evidence was perfect. The USB drive sat in its plastic case, innocuous and terrible. That drive contains everything, Clarence said. Scanned copies of the forged power of attorney documents. Email exchanges between Justin and Amanda discussing how to access the CD bank records showing the systematic theft. Phone records proving coordination. If you're going to prosecute detective, this is your smoking gun. Campbell picked up the drive carefully like it was evidence at a crime scene, which I supposed it was. Mr. Pemberton, this is exactly what we need. With this and the complaint Mrs. Harrison filed with my office, we can move forward immediately. That was Helen's intention, Clarence said. She told me I won't be alive to testify, but the evidence will speak for itself. She was very clear about that. I looked at the box at the folders full of my wife's careful documentation, at the years of work she'd done in secret. Why didn't she tell me? The question came out raw. Why go through all this alone? Clarence sat down heavily in his chair. She was protecting you, Charles. She said if you knew you'd try to intervene, try to talk to Justin, try to fix the relationship, try to get him help. She said you believed in redemption and second chances, and she loved that about you. But she also knew it would compromise the evidence. So she suffered alone. Not entirely alone. She had me. She had Detective Campbell once she contacted him. But yes, she carried most of this burden herself, because she believed justice mattered more than comfort. Clarence reached into the box one more time and pulled out the leather-bound notebook. There's one more thing. Helen's personal journal. 2017 through 2024. 7 years of entries. She wrote in it almost every day. You should read it tonight, Charles. Alone. It's not evidence, it's too personal for that. It's her voice, her thoughts, the parts she couldn't tell anyone else. He held it out to me. The leather was worn soft at the corners, the pages thick with ink. I took it. It was heavier than it should have been. Helen was the bravest person I ever knew, Clarence said, and his voice finally broke. And the loneliest. She documented every theft, yes, but she also documented why she stayed silent, why she let them think she was losing her mind, why she chose this path. Read it, Charles. Understand what she sacrificed. Not just her life, her dignity, her final years. Everything. The notebook sat in my hands like a confession. I opened the leather cover at 10 o'clock that Tuesday night, expecting financial records. What I found was my wife's voice page after page of careful observations, dates, dollar amounts, and a truth that made my chest tighten with grief and rage. The apartment was dark except for the kitchen light. I'd made coffee I didn't drink. Now it was just me and Helen's words, and I was terrified of what I'd find. The first entry was dated November 12, 2017. Charles thinks I'm losing my mind. I heard him on the phone with Paul Dixon today asking about memory clinics. I wanted to tell him the truth, but I can't. Not yet. If Justin knows I'm documenting this, he'll destroy the evidence. I have to let them think I'm helpless. I read it 4 times. The words didn't change. She'd been pretending. From the very beginning. January 8, 2018. 22,000 withdrawn from joint checking. Justin said it was for property taxes. I called the county assessor. Actual tax bill, $8,400. Where did the other $13,600 go? April 14, 2018. Amanda showed me hospital bills from UC Davis. $30,000 for Lily's emergency surgery. I called the hospital. No record of Lily being treated there. The documents were fake. Page after page of small thefts, adding up to something monstrous. July 19, 2019 made my hands shake. Justin brought Dr. Dixon today without warning. Said I've been having episodes. Had a list prepared, forgetting conversations, leaving the stove on, getting lost. All lies. But I played along. When Dixon asked what year it was, I said 1987. The look on Justin's face, relief mixed with satisfaction. He wanted me diagnosed. Helen had failed cognitive tests on purpose, had pretended to forget her own address. It's easier than I thought becoming invisible. When you're a confused old woman, people stop seeing you as a threat. They talk in front of you like you're not there. That's when you learn the truth. The entries from 2020 onward detailed her isolation. February 9th, 2021. Justin changed my phone number without asking. Said it was to reduce spam calls. Now when old friends try to call, they get disconnected. I'm disappearing one person at a time. June 23rd, 2021. Amanda convinced the building manager I'm not allowed visitors without family approval. Mrs. Chen from 3B tried to visit with soup yesterday. They turned her away. Every entry was dated. Every detail verified. Then January 15th, 2024. The handwriting shakier. Dr. Dixon confirmed it today. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer. He wants to start treatment immediately. Cost $200,000 to $300,000. I told him no. I had to stop reading, walk to the window. Helen had refused treatment. Had come home and pretended everything was fine. The next entry explained why. Charles will want to use our savings, but our savings are gone. Justin took them years ago. The only money left is the certificate, and if I touch that, there's nothing left to prove what he did. The money isn't for me anymore. It's evidence. It's justice. She'd chosen to die. Consciously, deliberately. The entries that followed were shorter, written in increasing pain. Helen documented visits she went to, alone, prescriptions she filled at pharmacies across town, so Justin wouldn't know how sick she was. March 28th, 2024. 8 days before she died. 8 days left, maybe less. Dr. Dixon says I should be in hospice, but I can't go yet. Not until everything is ready. Not until I'm sure Charles will find the certificate, will see the truth. I have to make it to April. The final entry was April 1st, the day she died. Charles is still asleep. I can hear him snoring, that soft sound that used to annoy me and now makes me want to cry. I won't wake him. Let him have a few more hours before his world changes. I've left everything he needs, the certificate, the instructions, to Russell and Clarence and Detective Campbell. I've built the case. All he has to do is finish it. I trust him. He's the best man I've ever known, even if I had to lie to him at the end. Some betrayals are beyond forgiveness. Some truths are worth dying to protect. I love you, Charles. Finish what I started. The page blurred. I was crying ugly, choking sobs I hadn't allowed since the funeral. Helen had died that afternoon while I was at the grocery store. I'd thought it was peaceful, natural. But she'd waited, held on until everything was in place. Then she'd let go. I closed the notebook and sat in the dark for a long time. My wife had died alone in pain, protecting a secret that would destroy our son. She'd sacrificed everything, not just her money, but her dignity, her final year, her chance at treatment. Because she believed justice mattered more than comfort. Because she believed some betrayals were beyond forgiveness. The question was whether I had the courage to finish what she'd started. Outside, a car alarm went off, then stopped. The refrigerator hummed. Normal sounds in a world that would never be normal again. I picked up my phone, called Detective Campbell, nearly midnight, but he'd said any time. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Harrison. I read the notebook, all of it. A pause. And she knew everything. She documented everything. She died protecting the evidence. I know. She chose to die, detective. Chose it. Because treating the cancer would have meant using the money, and using the money would have meant Justin getting away with it. I know, Campbell said quietly. What do we do now? Now, Campbell said, we finish what your wife started. Detective Campbell called Wednesday morning with the kind of controlled excitement investigators get when a case breaks wide open. We traced the money, he said. All of it. I was still at the kitchen table where I'd spent most of the night, Helen's notebook closed in front of me. I hadn't slept. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her handwriting, saw those final words. Finish what I started. Where did it go? I asked. Everywhere and nowhere, Campbell's voice carried an edge of satisfaction. Your son's been running a sophisticated money laundering operation for 6 years. We just cracked it. He arrived at my apartment 30 minutes later with a laptop and a file folder thick with bank records. Spread them across my kitchen table like a general planning a battle. Your son and daughter-in-law live in a $680,000 house in El Dorado Hills, Campbell began. Purchased in 2018, they drive 2 luxury vehicles, Tesla Model X and a BMW X5. Your granddaughter attends Sierra Ridge Academy private school tuition, running $42,000 a year. Add mortgage, car payments, property taxes, and general lifestyle expenses, and they're burning through at least $200,000 annually. He pulled up a spreadsheet on his laptop. Justin's legitimate income from pharmaceutical sales, $95,000 a year. Maybe $100,000 in a good year with bonuses. The math was obvious even to me. He can't afford any of that. Exactly. So we dug deeper. Campbell clicked through screens. September 2018, Justin registered a limited liability company called Garrett Holdings. Filed in Delaware, which is a red flag. Delaware has loose reporting requirements, making it popular for shell companies. Shell company. A business that exists only on paper. No employees, no office, no products or services, just a bank account for moving money around. Campbell pulled up incorporation documents. Garrett Holdings has received $847,000 in consulting fees between 2018 and 2024. The payments came from offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and British Virgin Islands, accounts we can't easily trace back to their source. He showed me the pattern. Money flowing into Garrett Holdings in chunks, $30,000 here, $50,000 there. Always under the reporting threshold that would trigger automatic federal scrutiny. But we know where it really came from, Campbell continued. Your son withdrew money from your wife's accounts, transferred it to these offshore accounts through a series of intermediary banks, then had it sent back to Garrett Holdings as legitimate-looking consulting income. Once it was in Garrett Holdings, he could move it to his personal accounts without raising suspicion. Money laundering, I said. Textbook laundering. And here's the critical part: Amanda Harrison is listed as Garrett Holdings' chief financial officer. She signed the incorporation documents. She manages the bank accounts. She structured the whole operation. Campbell pulled out another document, a corporate filing with Amanda's signature at the bottom, her handwriting confident and clear. Your daughter-in-law isn't just complicit, Mr. Harrison. She's the architect. Justin's the one who stole from your wife, but Amanda built the system that let him hide it. I stared at Amanda's signature, remembered her standing in my apartment Sunday, smiling sympathetically, touching my arm. We're so sorry about Helen. There's more, Campbell said. In March of 2023, Justin withdrew $47,000 from one of the joint accounts with your wife. Told her it was for a medical emergency. Said Lily needed emergency dental surgery. We tracked that money. Want to know where it went? I nodded, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas. He gambled it away in 3 days. Blackjack and poker mostly. Lost every cent. So while Helen was documenting his thefts, planning her case, dying of cancer, she couldn't afford to treat Justin, was in Las Vegas burning through $47,000 at casino tables. We've got him 6 ways from Sunday, Campbell said. Elder financial abuse, forgery, money laundering, wire fraud, conspiracy. And now we've found someone who can testify about how the whole thing started. Who? Marcus Bradford, former senior accounts manager at Wells Fargo Midtown, worked there for 8 years until he was fired in October 2020. Campbell pulled up a photo on his laptop. A man in his mid-30s, dark hair, tired eyes. He's the one who helped Justin try to access your wife's certificate of deposit. My stomach dropped. He was in on it. Not exactly. He was manipulated by Amanda. She targeted him, specifically started a relationship with him, asked questions about banking systems, exploited his access to customer accounts. When he finally realized what she was doing and refused to help, she threatened to report him for unauthorized account access. Wells Fargo fired him anyway. He's been blacklisted from banking ever since. Why would he testify? Because he wants Amanda Harrison to pay for destroying his career, and because he has information about her background that changes everything. Campbell closed his laptop. Amanda's maiden name is Palmer. Her father owned a commercial real estate company in Orange County that went bankrupt in 2015 amid fraud allegations. He's currently under federal investigation. Marcus did some digging after Amanda disappeared from his life. Found out she dated 3 other men in finance between 2014 and 2019. All of them lost money or access or both. She has a pattern. Exactly. She identifies targets, builds relationships, exploits them for information or access, then moves on. Your son isn't her first victim. He's just the most profitable one. Campbell stood, gathering his papers. I've arranged for you to meet Marcus tomorrow afternoon. 3 o'clock, Tower Cafe downtown. He wants to tell you directly what Amanda did to him, how she operates, and he's willing to testify in court about all of it. Will that be enough to arrest them? Between Marcus's testimony, your wife's documentation, the financial records, and the money laundering evidence, Campbell's expression was grim. We'll have arrest warrants by Monday, maybe sooner. Your son and daughter-in-law are looking at serious federal prison time. He paused at the door. Mr. Harrison, I know this isn't easy, but your wife spent 8 years building this case. She documented every theft, every lie, every manipulation. She died protecting the evidence. The least we can do is use it. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the papers he'd left behind. Spreadsheets showing money flowing through shell companies and offshore accounts. Corporate documents with Amanda's signature. Photos of the house in El Dorado Hills, the luxury cars, the private school. All of it paid for with money stolen from Helen. Money she could have used to save her own life. I picked up my phone. There was a message I'd been avoiding since yesterday, from Justin. Dad, I need to talk to you. It's important. Call me. I deleted it without listening to the rest. The man waiting for us at Tower Cafe looked like he hadn't slept in days, 35 years old, wearing a cheap suit that hung loose on his frame hands, wrapped around a coffee cup, like it was the only solid thing left in his life. Tower Cafe sat on Broadway, a Sacramento landmark, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in local art. Campbell and I arrived at 3 sharp. Marcus Bradford was already there, corner table, staring at nothing. Mr. Harrison, Campbell said as we approached. This is Marcus Bradford. Marcus looked up, red-rimmed eyes, shadows underneath. When he stood to shake my hand, His fingers were cold, despite the coffee. "I'm the reason your son knew about the sea deal," he said. "I told Amanda it existed. I'm sorry." We sat. Marcus kept his hands wrapped around his cup. "I met Amanda Harrison in October 2019, he began. "Banking conference at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco. She approached me at the networking reception. We talked for 3 hours. She asked intelligent questions about wealth management, estate planning. I thought she was genuinely interested." His voice was flat, reciting facts. "We started dating. She never mentioned being married at first. When she told me about Justin in December, she said they were separated, working through a divorce. Said her mother-in-law was holding assets that should have been divided." "You believed her?" I said. "I wanted to." Marcus's jaw tightened. "She was strategic, never pushed too hard, just casual questions. How do banks track large deposits? What triggers fraud alerts? I thought I was making conversation about my work." "When did she ask about Helen?" Campbell asked. "March 4th, 2020. She called me at work, said she needed help. Asked if I could look up an account for Helen Harrison. Said her husband's mother had severe dementia, couldn't remember her accounts, that the family needed access for medical expenses." The lie was smooth, practiced. I looked up the account. Marcus looked at me directly. Account number, balance when it opened. $2,100,000. I told her everything. This was how Justin had known. Through Amanda, who'd cultivated a relationship with a bank employee specifically for this information. March 9th. Amanda brought me power of attorney documents. Said they'd been notarized, but the bank kept rejecting them. Asked if I could manually bypass the verification system. "Did you?" Campbell asked. "I started to, but something felt wrong. So I ran them through proper authentication protocols instead." He paused. "They were flagged immediately. Forged signatures. Wrong paper stock. When I called the notary whose seal was on the documents, he had no record of meeting Helen Harrison." "What happened when you confronted her?" "She denied everything. Then when I said I was reporting it as fraud, she threatened me. Said she had text messages where I'd mentioned looking up the account, that I'd be fired for protocol violations. And I reported it anyway. Filed a fraud alert, flagged the account, documented everything. Wells Fargo investigated the forged POA. But they also investigated me." His voice went bitter. 6 months later, they fired me. Client confidentiality violation. Didn't matter that I'd refused to help, that I'd reported the fraud. I've been unemployed 4 years. Blacklisted from banking. Amanda disappeared after that. Blocked my number, deleted her accounts. I tried to warn your son. Left him a voicemail saying his wife had tried to use me to steal from his mother. He never called back." Campbell leaned forward. "Tell him what you found about her background." Marcus pulled out his phone, showed screenshots. "Her maiden name is Amanda Lynn Palmer. Her father owned a commercial real estate company in Orange County. Went bankrupt in 2015. He's under federal investigation for mortgage fraud." "She learned from her father," Campbell said. "I found 3 other men she dated between 2014 and 2019. All worked in finance. I contacted them. Same pattern every time Amanda dates them, asks strategic questions, tries to exploit their access, then disappears. Your son isn't her first victim," Campbell told me. "Just the most successful one." Marcus put his phone away. "I lost my career because I trusted her. But if there's a trial, I'll testify. I'll tell a jury exactly what she asked me to do, how she operates." He looked at me with defiance. "Your wife lost her life. I lost my career. The least we can do is make sure they don't get away with it." Campbell closed his notebook and looked at me. "We have enough now. The forged POA documents the systematic withdrawals, Marcus's testimony, Helen's notebook. I'm filing for arrest warrants tomorrow morning. He paused. Mr. Harrison, when we execute those warrants, it's going to be fast. You need to prepare yourself. Your son and daughter-in-law will be in custody within 48 hours. And your granddaughter. He didn't finish. Didn't have to. Lily was 8 years old, and her parents were about to be arrested for multiple felonies. Campbell called me at 6:45 on Thursday morning, April 24th. It's happening now, was all he said, before I heard car doors slamming in the background, the crackle of police radio, someone shouting commands. 2 weeks had passed since our meeting with Marcus Bradford. 2 weeks of Campbell building his case, gathering statements, coordinating with federal prosecutors. 2 weeks of me living in limbo, knowing what was coming, but not when. Now it was here. We're at the El Dorado Hills residence, Campbell said, phone still pressed to his ear as I heard movement around him. 4 units. Your son just answered the door. I was sitting at my kitchen table, same place I'd been since 5 that morning when Campbell had texted me a single word today. I'd made coffee, hadn't drunk it, just sat there waiting for this call, knowing it would come and dreading it anyway. Through the phone, I heard Campbell's voice, calm and official. Justin Harrison, you're under arrest for elder financial abuse, forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. Then Justin's voice, confused and rising in panic. What? What are you talking about? There's some mistake. No mistake, Mr. Harrison. We have documentation of $1,850,000 withdrawn from accounts belonging to your mother between 2016 and 2024, along with 3 forged power of attorney attempts in 2020. A woman's voice in the background, Amanda, sharp and controlled even now. Don't say anything, Justin. We need our lawyer. Campbell narrated for me in low tones, professional detachment masking what must have been satisfaction. He's not resisting. White dress shirt, barefoot. Probably just woke up. Neighbor across the street is filming on her phone. I heard the metallic click of handcuffs. Miranda rights being read in that rhythmic cadence. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Justin's voice again, breaking now. Dad, is this because of that certificate? That money was supposed to be for the family, for all of us. Campbell cut him off. Save it for your attorney. Second unit just confirmed, Campbell said to me. Amanda Harrison located at Serenity Day Spa on El Dorado Hills Boulevard. She drove there separately this morning. Smart. Or she'd thought she was smart. Splitting up so if one got arrested, the other could disappear. But Campbell had anticipated that. Radio chatter crackled through the phone. Suspect in custody, requesting lawyer, not cooperative. Amanda's playing it cooler than your son, Campbell said. But we've got her dead to rights. Marcus Bradford's testimony puts her as the architect of the whole thing. There was a pause. Background noise changed, someone talking urgently, a child's voice. Mr. Harrison? Campbell's tone shifted gentler. There's a child here. Your granddaughter. 8 years old, asking where her daddy's going. My chest tightened. I'd only met Lily twice, once at Helen's funeral, once, years before, at a strained Christmas dinner. Justin and Amanda had kept her separate from us, controlled access like they'd controlled everything else. What happens to her? I asked. Child Protective Services is en route. She can't stay here alone with both parents in custody. Campbell paused meaningfully. She'll be placed in temporary foster care pending a custody hearing, unless there's family willing to take her. I looked around the apartment. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, living room filled with Helen's books, and that old piano neither of us had played in years. Not built for a child, but better than foster care. Nah, they're transporting your son to the van now, Campbell continued. Amanda's en route from the spa. Both will be processed at Sacramento County Main Jail, booking fingerprints holding cells. Arraignment scheduled for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Will they make bail? Campbell was quiet a moment. Judge will see the evidence, elderly victim, substantial dollar amount, forged documents, clear flight risk given the planned nature. I'd be surprised if bail's set under $500,000 for Justin, $750 for Amanda. I thought about the house in El Dorado Hills, probably mortgaged to the hilt. The cars, the lifestyle, all built on stolen money. They couldn't raise that kind of bail. Not without selling everything, and that would take weeks. They'll stay in custody until trial, I said. Most likely. Another voice in the background, closer this time. A social worker, professional and kind. Lily, honey, come with me. We're going to take care of you. Everything's going to be okay. But it wasn't okay. A child's parents were being arrested for stealing from her grandmother. Nothing about that was okay. Mr. Harrison, I need to go. CPS just arrived. Campbell's voice dropped lower, and I heard him move away from the activity. But you need to think about what happens next. Your granddaughter needs family. And in 3 weeks, you're going to be sitting in a federal courtroom, watching your son and daughter-in-law go on trial. He paused, and I heard the weight of what he wasn't saying. The choice I'd have to make. You need to decide what kind of justice you want, Campbell said quietly, and what kind of mercy. The line went silent except for muffled voices, car doors closing and engines starting. Detective, I said. Yes. Tell the social worker, tell them I'm coming. For Lily. Tell them her grandfather is coming to get her. A long pause. Then, I'll tell them. But Mr. Harrison, you understand what that means? Taking custody of your granddaughter while her parents are on trial, it's going to be complicated, difficult. She's going to have questions you won't know how to answer. Helen would have wanted me to protect her, I said. That's all the answer I need. All right. Campbell's voice carried something like respect. I'll make the arrangements. But Charles, he'd never used my first name before. Your son is going to prison, probably for a long time. And when he finds out you're the one who gave us the evidence, who pushed for prosecution, who took his daughter... He didn't finish. I know, I said. I hung up and sat in the quiet apartment. The morning light was coming through the window, now turning everything gold. Somewhere across town, my son was being processed into jail. My daughter-in-law was demanding her phone call, and my granddaughter was asking questions no 8-year-old should have to ask. Helen's notebook still sat on the kitchen counter where I'd left it 2 weeks ago. I picked it up, ran my fingers over the worn leather. Finish what I started, she'd written. I was finishing it. All of it. Even the parts that would break what was left of this family. Even the parts that meant becoming the villain in my own son's story. Because some betrayals were beyond forgiveness, and some truths were worth protecting no matter the cost. The Robert T. Matsui Federal Courthouse in downtown Sacramento was all dark wood and cold marble, the kind of space designed to make you feel the weight of justice, and I sat in the third row watching my son and daughter-in-law stand before Judge Eleanor Hartman to answer for what they'd done. 3 weeks had passed since the arrests. 3 weeks of Lily living in my one-bedroom apartment, sleeping on the pull-out couch, asking questions I couldn't answer. 3 weeks of Justin's lawyer calling, leaving messages I deleted. 3 weeks of preparing for this moment. Now it was Monday, May 15th, 9 in the morning, and the trial was beginning. Judge Eleanor Hartman presided, 60-something, gray hair, pulled back, severely wire-rimmed glasses that caught the light when she looked down at the documents before her. She'd been a federal judge for 20 years, Campbell had told me. fair but unforgiving when it came to elder abuse cases. The United States versus Justin Michael Harrison and Amanda Lynn Harrison, she announced. The defendants are charged with 3 counts of elder financial abuse, 7 counts of forgery, 2 counts of money laundering, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit fraud. Justin stood at the defense table in a suit I'd never seen before, probably borrowed from his attorney Maxwell Grant, who looked expensive and confident. Amanda wore a conservative navy dress, hair, pulled-back makeup understated. They'd coached her well. She looked like a concerned suburban mother, not a woman who'd orchestrated years of theft. Prosecutor James Whitman stood for his opening statement. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with the kind of intensity that suggested he took these cases personally. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, Helen Harrison spent the final years of her life pretending to lose her mind while secretly documenting her son's crimes. She faked dementia. She failed cognitive tests on purpose. She let her family think she couldn't remember her own address, all while building an airtight case against them. He walked toward the jury box, making eye contact with each member. Why would a woman do this? Why would she suffer such indignity, such isolation, such loneliness, because her son, Justin Harrison, was stealing from her? Systematically. Ruthlessly. $1,850,000 over 8 years. And his wife Amanda Harrison built the system that allowed him to hide it. Maxwell Grant objected relevance inflammatory, but Judge Hartman overruled. "You will hear testimony," Whitman continued, "from the bank manager who flagged forged documents, from the detective who investigated the money laundering scheme, from a man whose career was destroyed when Amanda Harrison manipulated him to gain access to her mother-in-law's accounts. And you will hear in her own words from Helen Harrison herself, a woman who chose death over letting her son get away with it." Grant stood for the defense. His strategy was predictable family misunderstanding, confused elderly woman's son trying to help manage finances. "This is a tragedy of miscommunication," he said. Justin Harrison loved his mother. When she began showing signs of cognitive decline, he did what any caring son would do. He helped manage her accounts, paid her bills, made sure she was taken care of. The prosecution will paint this as theft. We will show you it was love. I felt sick, heard the lie wrapped in reasonable-sounding words. "The prosecution calls Russell Jennings," Whitman announced. Russell took the stand, was sworn in. He'd aged in the month since I'd first met him, more gray and his hair deeper lines around his eyes. This case had taken something from him too. Whitman established his credentials efficiently. 27 years in banking. Regional manager at Wells Fargo Midtown since 2010. "Mr. Jennings, do you recognize this document?" Whitman displayed the certificate of deposit on the courtroom screens. "I do. That's the CD Helen Harrison opened April 12, 2017. Initial deposit, $2 million. Current value, $3,245,670. And did there come a time when someone attempted to access this account?" "Yes. March 2020. 3 separate attempts over 2 weeks." Russell's voice was steady, professional. "March 9th, 14th, and 20th. Each time using power of attorney documents claiming Mrs. Harrison was mentally incapacitated and unable to manage her finances." The forged POA documents appeared on screen. Justin's name at the top. His signature at the bottom, swearing under oath that Helen couldn't manage her own affairs. "What did you do when these documents were presented?" "I flagged them immediately. Mrs. Harrison had warned me this might happen. She'd come to the bank in 2017, specifically, to tell me that someone might try to steal from her, and that I should deny any access requests and notify her directly." Murmurs through the courtroom. Judge Hartman's gavel came down once. Silence. Mrs. Harrison knew someone would try to steal from her. Whitman repeated for emphasis. Did she say who? No, but she was very specific that no one, including family, should be able to access the account without her personal authorization. Grant's cross-examination was brief, ineffective. He tried to suggest Russell had misunderstood Helen's instructions, that she'd been confused. But Russell held firm. Helen had been sharp, clear, methodical, not confused at all. The prosecution introduces Exhibit 12, Whitman said. Helen Harrison's personal journal kept from November 2017 through April 2025. A court clerk held up the leather-bound notebook. My chest tightened, seeing it in someone else's hands. Whitman read selected entries aloud. Helen's careful documentation of thefts, her description of faking cognitive tests, her observations about being isolated, cut off from friends and family. The courtroom was silent except for his voice and Helen's words. It's easier than I thought becoming invisible, he read. When you're a confused old woman, people stop seeing you as a threat. They talk in front of you like you're not there. That's when you learn the truth. I watched Justin. His face had gone pale, hands gripping the edge of the defense table. He was shaking slightly. Hearing his mother's words, understanding for the first time that she'd known everything, that she'd watched him steal from her while pretending not to notice. Amanda sat perfectly still. No emotion, just cold calculation, already thinking 3 moves ahead. Whitman closed the journal and looked at the jury. Over the next 3 days, you will hear from witnesses who were manipulated by Amanda Harrison. You will hear from experts who will explain how these defendants systematically exploited an elderly cancer patient. And you will hear in her own words, recorded on video, from Helen Harrison herself. He paused, letting that sink in. The prosecution calls Marcus Bradford. Marcus Bradford took the stand at 9:15 Tuesday morning, and I watched my son's attorney realize in real time that his entire defense strategy had just collapsed. Whitman moved efficiently through preliminaries. Mr. Bradford, what was your occupation? In March 2020. Senior Accounts Manager at Wells Fargo Midtown Branch, Sacramento. 8 years with the bank. And your current occupation? Marcus's jaw tightened. Unemployed. I was terminated from Wells Fargo in October 2020 for protocol violations. The jury leaned forward. This wasn't what they'd expected. Mr. Bradford, how did you meet Amanda Harrison? Banking Industry Conference, Fairmont Hotel, San Francisco. October 19, 2019. Saturday evening networking reception. What was the nature of your interaction? We talked for approximately 3 hours. She asked questions about estate planning, asset protection, how banks handle accounts for elderly clients with cognitive decline. Marcus's voice was steady, factual. She said she worked in healthcare consulting. Whitman displayed text messages on the courtroom screens. Marcus's phone records subpoenaed during discovery. Mr. Bradford, can you read the message from Amanda Harrison dated January 7, 2020? Marcus read aloud. Question for you: if a family member has a CD but can't remember opening it, how would someone find out the account details, asking for a friend dealing with a parent's dementia? And did you respond? Yes. I explained that family members could request information with proper documentation, death certificate, power of attorney, or being listed as beneficiary. Did that satisfy her? No. Over the next 2 months, she asked increasingly specific questions. What if the bank rejects a POA? How do signature verification systems work? Can account access be manually overridden? The jury was taking notes now. I saw one woman shake her head slightly. Mr. Bradford, did there come a time when Amanda Harrison asked you directly about a specific account? March 4th, 2020. She called me at work, asked if I could look up an account for Helen Harrison. Said it was her husband's mother, that Helen had severe dementia, that the family desperately needed access for medical expenses. Did you comply? Marcus's voice dropped. Yes. I looked up the account. Confirmed it existed, certificate of deposit balance approximately $2,100,000. I gave her the account number. The courtroom stirred. Judge Hartman tapped her gavel once. What happened next? March 9th, Amanda brought me power of attorney documents. Said they'd been notarized, but the bank kept rejecting them. Asked if I could manually approve the request. Whitman displayed the forged POA on screen, the same documents Russell had shown. What did you do? I ran them through proper authentication protocols. The signatures were flagged immediately. Wrong pressure, wrong pen type, notary seal dimensions off by 0.03 millimeters. And you informed Amanda Harrison? Yes. I told her the documents were fraudulent. She became angry. Said I must have made a mistake. When I refused to override the system, she threatened to report me for unauthorized account access. Did you report the fraud? Yes, immediately. Filed an internal fraud report, flagged the account, documented everything. And the consequences? Wells Fargo terminated my employment 6 months later. I'd violated client confidentiality by disclosing account information without authorization. The fact that I'd ultimately refused to help didn't matter. I've been unable to find work in banking since. I watched Justin sitting beside Maxwell Grant. His face was ashen, staring at Marcus like he'd never seen him before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe Amanda had kept Marcus secret, just another tool in her arsenal. Austin Reed stood for Amanda's cross-examination. Mr. Bradford, isn't it true you were romantically involved with my client? Yes. And isn't it possible you're testifying now out of spite because she ended the relationship? Marcus looked at Reed directly. She didn't end it. I did when I realized she'd used me to commit fraud. And I'm testifying because an elderly woman with cancer died while her son stole everything she had. If that makes me spiteful, so be it. Reed sat down. No further questions. The prosecution calls Kimberly Morrison. A woman I didn't recognize approached the stand, late 30s, professional business suit, dark hair pulled back. She didn't look at Justin as she took the oath. Miss Morrison, what is your relationship to Justin Harrison? I was married to him from June 2011 to March 2019. 8 years. This I hadn't known. Justin's first marriage. Campbell had mentioned it during investigation, but hearing it in court made it real. Ms. Morrison, during your marriage, did you maintain separate financial accounts? Yes, a savings account from before we married, approximately $62,000. What happened to that account? Kimberly's voice was steady, practiced. Between July 2017 and December 2018, $47,000 was withdrawn without my knowledge or permission. I discovered it in January 2019 during divorce proceedings. Did you determine who made the withdrawals? Yes, my ex-husband. He'd accessed my online banking, transferred money to an account registered to AP Financial Consulting. And who owned AP Financial Consulting? Amanda Palmer, the woman he'd been having an affair with, his current wife. The courtroom erupted. Judge Hartman's gavel came down hard. Order. Whitman displayed bank records. Ms. Morrison, can you confirm these transfer records? Yes. 17 transfers between July 2017 and December 2018. Amounts ranging from $1,000 to $5,000. Did you press charges at the time? No. My attorney advised that criminal charges would complicate the divorce and cost more in legal fees than I'd recover. I just wanted out. And looking back now, Kimberly looked at Justin for the first time. I should have reported it. If I had, maybe Helen Harrison would still be alive. I'm sorry I didn't. I'm sorry I let him get away with it. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Whitman returned to his table gathering papers. Then he stopped, turned back to Judge Hartman. Your Honor, the prosecution has one final witness. We call Helen Harrison. The courtroom went silent. Judge Hartman frowned. Counselor, the victim is deceased. Whitman nodded. Yes, Your Honor. But in March 2022, Mrs. Harrison recorded a notarized sworn statement with her attorney anticipating exactly this situation. We request permission to present her testimony via video recording, pursuant to Federal Rule of Evidence 804B. Maxwell Grant was on his feet. Objection. Hearsay. Exception for unavailable declarants with corroborating evidence, Your Honor. Whitman countered. Mrs. Harrison is deceased. Her statement was made under oath, notarized, and corroborated by physical evidence presented at trial. Judge Hartman considered. I'll allow it. But Mr. Whitman, this had better be relevant. It is, Your Honor. The lights dimmed. The lights dimmed. The screen at the front of the courtroom glowed to life. And then my wife appeared there, sitting in Clarence Pemberton's office, looking straight at me across time and death. The date stamp in the corner read March 15th, 2022. 3 years before she died. Helen was thinner then, her cheekbones sharper, but her eyes were clear and steady. She looked directly into the camera with the same expression I'd seen 1,000 times when she was about to explain something difficult to a child who wouldn't understand yet. My name is Helen Marie Harrison, she began, her voice steady. I'm recording this sworn statement in the presence of Clarence Pemberton, my attorney, and notary public Patricia Wells. I am of sound mind and body. What I'm about to tell you is the truth. She paused, folded her hands on the desk. I've been diagnosed with stage 3 pancreatic cancer. My oncologist has given me 2 years at most. He's recommended chemotherapy and possibly surgery, but the estimated cost is between $200,000 and $300,000. I've chosen to refuse treatment. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Hartman raised her hand for silence. Helen continued. I'm refusing treatment because the money I would need to pay for it is currently the only evidence in a criminal case. If I withdraw those funds, my son will know I discovered his theft. He'll destroy the remaining evidence, and there will be no justice. So I'm choosing to die with the evidence intact. Justin made a sound, half gasp, half sob. I didn't look at him. I want to be very clear about what's happened, Helen said. In November 2017, I discovered that my son, Justin Michael Harrison, had been stealing from me. Not small amounts, not a one-time mistake. Systematic theft over years. He added his name to my accounts in 2016. By the time I found out, he'd taken nearly $800,000. The screen shifted to a spreadsheet, Helen's handwriting columns of dates and amounts. I opened a certificate of deposit in April 2017. She continued using money from the sale of 2 properties I'd inherited from my mother. I deposited $2 million and instructed the bank that only I could access it. I never told my husband. I never told my son. I knew that if Justin found out, he'd try to take it. Her face hardened. In March 2020, he tried. 3 times in 2 weeks, he submitted forged power of attorney documents, claiming I was incapacitated by dementia and couldn't manage my affairs. The bank flagged the signatures as fraudulent. Each time they called me, each time I thanked them and told them not to involve law enforcement yet. Helen leaned forward slightly. I need you to understand something. I've been pretending to have dementia since November 2017. I did it to protect the evidence. If my son thought I was losing my mind, he'd believe I couldn't track what he was doing. He'd get sloppy. He'd leave a trail. She reached off-screen and lifted something into view, a small velvet box. This was my mother's engagement ring. My son sold it on eBay in June 2018 for $4,000. When I asked him about it, he told me I must have lost it, that my memory was going. That's when I knew how far he was willing to go. The camera zoomed slightly. Helen's expression softened, but her voice stayed firm. To the jury, my son and his wife stole $1,850,000 from me over 8 years. They isolated me. They forged documents. They manipulated bank employees. They are guilty. She paused. To my son. Her voice cracked just slightly. Justin, I loved you. I would have helped you if you'd asked. If you'd admitted you'd made mistakes, if you'd tried to make things right, I would have forgiven you. But you chose to steal from me while I was dying. You chose to let me die alone rather than risk me discovering the truth. I can't forgive that. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. To my husband. Her voice steadied. Charles, by the time you see this, I'll be gone. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I knew you'd try to fix it. You'd try to forgive him because he's our son. But some things are beyond forgiveness. Use the money to help other people. Make sure Lily knows her grandmother was brave. And please, my love, live. The screen went dark. The courtroom was silent. Somewhere behind me, a woman was crying. Justin had his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. Amanda sat perfectly still, whispering something to Austin Reed about filing an appeal. Judge Hartman's voice cut through the silence. The jury will now deliberate. They were out for 3 hours. When they returned, the foreperson, a woman in her 50s with silver hair, stood and read the verdict in a clear, unwavering voice. On count 1, elder financial abuse, guilty. On count 2, forgery, guilty. On count 3, conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty. All 13 counts. Justin collapsed forward onto the defense table. Maxwell Grant steadied him. Amanda stared straight ahead, her face a mask. Judge Hartman scheduled sentencing for the following week. Sentencing day, Monday, May 23, 2025. Judge Eleanor Hartman had presided over federal cases for 20 years, but even she looked shaken as she read the terms aloud. Justin Michael Harrison, you are hereby sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $1,850,000 jointly and severally with your co-defendant. Justin didn't move. And Amanda Lynn Harrison, you are sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. Same restitution order applies. Amanda's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Hartman looked at me. Mr. Harrison, I cannot imagine what you've endured. Your wife was a remarkable woman. This court honors her courage. I nodded, unable to speak. As the marshals led Justin and Amanda away, Clarence Pemberton appeared at my side. He pressed a cream-colored envelope into my hand. The words on the front in Helen's handwriting for Charles. Open only when it's over. The envelope sat on my kitchen table for 24 hours before I had the courage to open it. Cream-colored paper, Helen's handwriting for Charles. Open only when it's over. I made coffee. I sat down. The morning light from the window on Capitol Avenue fell across the table the same way it had the day I found the certificate in the trash. That felt like a lifetime ago now. I opened the envelope. My dearest Charles, if you're reading this, the trial is over. Justin and Amanda have been convicted, and you know the truth about everything I hid from you. I'm so sorry, my love. I'm sorry for the secrets. I'm sorry for pretending to lose my mind. I'm sorry for dying alone when all I wanted was to hold your hand one last time. But I couldn't tell you while I was alive. You would have tried to forgive him because he's our son. You would have found a way to excuse it, to explain it, to fix it. That's who you are. You see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. It's one of the reasons I fell in love with you 49 years ago. There are some betrayals that lie beyond forgiveness, Charles. What Justin did wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was calculated, deliberate, and sustained over years. He watched me pretend to lose my mind. He watched me grow sicker. And he kept stealing. I need you to understand why I chose this path. If I'd confronted him, he would have destroyed the evidence. If I'd told you, you would have confronted him, and the result would have been the same. The only way to ensure justice was to let him think he'd won right up until the moment he realized he hadn't. The money and the certificate is yours now. I have 3 wishes for it. First, take care of yourself. You've spent 46 years taking care of me. Now take care of you. Second, use the money to help others. I've spoken with Clarence about setting up a foundation to assist elderly victims of financial abuse. He has all the paperwork ready. There are so many people out there like me, alone, afraid, unsure who to trust. Help them. Third, take care of Lily. She's 8 years old, and her parents are about to go to prison. She'll need someone to show her that love doesn't have to come with conditions, that family doesn't have to mean betrayal. Be that person for her, Charles. Be her grandfather in the way Justin never let you be. Tell Lily that her grandmother loved her from far away. Tell her she's the hope that grows after the pain. And tell her I asked you to teach her to play chess. She's smart like you. She'll love it. I have to go now, my love. Dr. Dixon says I have weeks, maybe days. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm only afraid you'll be angry with me for keeping this secret. Please don't be angry. Everything I did for justice and for love. Yours always, Helen. I sat there for a long time after I finished reading. The coffee went cold. The light shifted, and eventually, I folded the letter carefully, put it back in the envelope, and called Clarence Pemberton. I want to set up the foundation, I said. Today. 6 months later, November 2025, the custody hearing took place on a Tuesday morning in family court. Lily sat beside me, small and quiet, her hands folded in her lap. She was wearing the navy blue dress we'd bought together at Macy's, her choice. The judge, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes, reviewed the paperwork and asked Lily a few gentle questions. Did she feel safe with her grandfather? Did she want to stay with him? Lily nodded. Yes, ma'am. And do you understand that your parents won't be able to come home for a very long time? Yes, ma'am. The judge signed the order. Custody granted to Charles William Harrison, grandfather, effective immediately. As we left the courthouse, Lily slipped her hand into mine. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. By December, Lily had moved into the apartment permanently. We'd turned Helen's old sewing room into a bedroom, painted the walls lavender, bought a new bed, hung up posters of constellations and planets. Lily liked space. She liked things that were far away and impossible to reach. The Helen Harrison Foundation officially launched on December 15, 2025. Clarence handled the legal filings. I handled the mission. Marcus Bradford showed up 2 weeks later and asked if he could volunteer. I owe her, he said, standing in the tiny office we'd rented on J Street. I owe you. Let me help. By January, we'd helped 4 families. By March, we'd helped 12. The foundation provided free legal consultations, connected victims with financial crimes, detectives, and offered emergency funds for people who'd lost everything to a relative's theft. Marcus worked the intake line 3 days a week. He was good at it, patient, careful, and deeply familiar with how predators operated. He knew because he'd been manipulated by one. Lily started therapy in January. Twice a week, she sat with a child psychologist named Dr. Patel and talked about her parents, her grandmother, and the night the police came. She still had nightmares sometimes. She still asked questions I didn't know how to answer. But she was getting better. Slowly. She smiled more. She laughed at cartoons. She brought home straight A's from her new school and taped them to the refrigerator herself. One evening in late November, nearly 6 months to the day after the sentencing, Lily looked up from her math homework and asked, "Grandpa Charles, was Grandma Helen really smart?" I nodded. "The smartest person I ever knew." "Smarter than you," I smiled. "Much smarter." Lily tilted her head, considering. I wish I could have known her better. I reached into the drawer where I kept Helen's letter and pulled it out. I'd read it so many times the creases were starting to wear thin. "Your grandma left something for you," I said. "She asked me to tell you that she loved you even from far away. She said you're the hope that grows after the pain." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She just nodded. "And she asked me to teach you something," I continued. "What?" "How to play chess. Do you want to learn?" Lily looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in months. "Yes," she said. "I want to learn." The first time Lily beat me at chess was on a Sunday afternoon in December, 8 months after Helen died. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the one where I'd read her letter, the one where I'd found the certificate in the trash. Lily moved her queen into position, looked up at me with Helen's eyes and said, "Checkmate, Grandpa." I heard my wife's laugh in the winter breeze coming through the open window. "Well done," I said, tipping over my king. "Your grandmother would be proud." Lily grinned, a real full smile that reached her eyes. 8 months ago, I wasn't sure I'd ever see her smile like that again. The Helen Harrison Foundation occupied a small office on J Street, 3 blocks from Wells Fargo Midtown. We'd opened in early December, and by month's end, we'd helped 20 families recover stolen assets from financial elder abuse. Just a few weeks of operation, and already the foundation was making a real difference. Marcus Bradford worked there full-time. He ran the intake line, coordinated with financial crimes detectives, and trained banks on how to recognize elder financial abuse before it was too late. "Helen saved my life," he told me once. "By exposing Amanda, she gave me a way back." The foundation held a small gathering in mid-December, 8 months since Helen died, 8 months since I found that certificate, and my world shattered. 40 people attended, including Detective Campbell, Clarence, Pemberton, Russell, Jennings, and families we'd helped. Lily stood beside me as Clarence unveiled a plaque with Helen's photograph and a single line, "The truth is patient. It waits longer than any lie." Lily had chosen the words. She'd found them in Helen's notebook, underlined 3 times. After the gathering, Lily and I drove to East Lawn Memorial Park. The headstone was new, simple granite with Helen's name, her dates, and the same line from the plaque. Lily knelt and placed a white chess queen on top of the stone. It was something we did every visit, a ritual she'd started without explanation. "Hi, Grandma," Lily said softly. "I beat Grandpa at chess today. He says you'd be proud." The wind rustled the bare oak branches overhead. "I'm doing okay. School's good. The foundation helped another family last week. Grandpa says we're making a difference." She traced her finger over the engraved letters. "I miss you," she whispered. I knelt beside her and put my arm around her shoulders. We stayed like that for a while, the two of us under the oak tree, in the winter cold. Justin had written 3 letters from federal prison. They sat in a drawer unopened. Someday when Lily was older, I'd let her decide whether to read them. For now, they waited. Amanda's appeal had been denied. She had 3 more years to serve. Detective Campbell called every few months with updates on cases where the Foundation had made a difference. "You're doing good work, Mr. Harrison," he said during his last call. Helen would be damn proud. I thought about that often. Whether she'd be proud, whether I was honoring her sacrifice or just trying to outrun my guilt. But then I'd see Lily laughing with Marcus at the office, or I'd read a thank you letter from a family we'd helped, or I'd watch the sun set over Capitol Avenue. And I understood this was what Helen meant. This was what living looked like. One evening in late December, Lily looked up from her homework. "Grandpa, do you think my dad will ever say he's sorry?" I put down my book, a biography of Bobby Fischer that Lily had checked out for me. "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. Maybe not." "Do you think I should forgive him if he does?" I thought about Helen's letter. There are some betrayals that lie beyond forgiveness. But I also thought about Lily, 9 years old, carrying a weight no child should carry. "I think forgiveness is something you get to decide for yourself," I said slowly. "Not me, not your grandmother, you, and whatever you decide, I'll support you." Lily nodded, then went back to her homework. Late that night, after Lily had gone to bed, I sat at the kitchen table where this had all began. The certificate was long gone, transformed into the foundation, into Lily's future, into help for dozens of families. But Helen's words were still there, echoing in the quiet. The truth is patient. It waits longer than any lie. The truth had waited 8 years, hidden in a certificate tucked between old electric bills. It had survived Helen's death, Justin's theft, Amanda's manipulation. It had waited through forged signatures and fake dementia and a dying woman's sacrifice. And in the end, it had won. Not just in the courtroom. Not just in guilty verdicts and prison sentences. It had won in a 9-year-old girl learning to be brave, in a foundation helping hundreds, in a love that survived betrayal and death. I looked at the photograph of Helen on the shelf, the one from our 40th anniversary, where she was laughing, her eyes bright with intelligence and mischief. "Thank you," I whispered, "for trusting me, for being patient, for teaching me that justice and love aren't opposites, they're the same thing, seen from different angles." In the bedroom, Lily turned over in her sleep. The next morning, we played chess again. The foundation opened its doors. We kept building the life Helen had given us. The truth had been patient, and now it was free. If you've walked this entire journey with me, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now let me be brutally honest with you. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the warning signs. Don't let love make you blind to betrayal. I'm 71 years old, and I spent 46 years married to the most intelligent woman I ever knew. Yet in her final years, when she needed me most, I failed her completely. I trusted when I should have verified. I believed when I should have questioned. For 8 long years, Helen fought a silent war, while I remained utterly oblivious. God gave me eyes, but I refused to see. God gave me instincts, but I dismissed them as paranoia. When your gut tells you something's wrong, listen, that's God speaking through your conscience. Don't silence that voice the way I did. Here's what I've learned through devastating experience. Family doesn't guarantee honesty. Blood doesn't equal trustworthiness. Love and theft can coexist in the same person. If you're caring for elderly parents, check their bank accounts every single month. Ask uncomfortable questions. Demand transparency. Don't assume your siblings or your own children have pure intentions just because they're family. Financial elder abuse destroys families every day in America. Mine was just one story among thousands. Helen sacrificed her final years, refused cancer treatment, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to preserve evidence of our son's crimes. She died alone, afraid, pretending to lose her mind so Justin wouldn't destroy the proof. That's my burden to carry forever. My perspective after everything, some betrayals are so deep that earthly forgiveness becomes impossible. We must leave that judgment to God in His perfect wisdom. But we can still choose justice here on earth. We can protect others from suffering the same fate. That's exactly why the Helen Harrison Foundation exists, to turn Helen's pain into purpose. So I'm genuinely asking you, have you noticed warning signs in your own family? Do you regularly check on your aging parents' financial accounts? If you were in my position, what would you have done differently? If this story moved you or opened your eyes, please share it. Someone in your circle desperately needs this warning. Subscribe to this channel for more real-world lessons delivered through powerful storytelling. Because truth matters, especially when it hurts. I'm deeply grateful you stayed until the very end. Drop a 2 in the comments so I know you're truly here with me. One final note, this story blends real patterns of elder financial abuse with creative storytelling elements for educational impact. The characters and specifics are fictionalized, but the warning is absolutely urgent and real.